Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today. I'm Ryan Linder, Global Chief Marketing Officer and Executive Vice President at MDC Partners. Welcome to today's curated conversation, How Brands Tackle Winning. As we all gear up for Super Bowl 55, we're excited to have you here for a three-part conversation on how to break through at one of the biggest sports moments of the year. Today is brought to you by MDC Partners and the Stagwell Group. Together, we represent some of the most celebrated creative talent and innovative technology-forward capabilities the industry has to offer. Now, to get started with our discussion, we have companies working across the Super Bowl, from creating award-winning campaigns to understanding how consumers engaged on the big day. We're going to talk about what the Super Bowl means for brands, teams, and the creatives who are breaking the mold with innovative work. Today's program will have 4 quarters. We'll start with a conversation between Mark Penn, Chairman and CEO of MDC Partners and President of the Stagwell Group, and Kathleen Hall, Chief Brand Officer of Microsoft, discussing how brands break through on the big day. Following that, I'll sit down with my dear friend, Ronali Zaretbayani, Chief Marketing Officer of the Los Angeles Rams, who will discuss how teams market and tell their story around the big game. From there, we'll end with a panel conversation on breaking the mold and how creatives and storytellers have brought big ideas to life at the Super Bowl. Finally, a few minutes of Q&A to bring us on home. I look forward to today's program, and without any further delay, let's get started with our first conversation, Mark Penn and Kathleen Hall.
As we gear up for Sunday's Super Bowl, I'm excited to talk with a former colleague and great friend, Kathleen Hall, Chief Brand Officer at Microsoft. As Chief Brand Officer at Microsoft, Kathleen is responsible for stewardship and activation of the Microsoft brand, creating world-class advertising and messaging to consumers globally and delivering strategic, fact-based insights that drive Microsoft's business decisions. She's received numerous industry awards and accolades for media promotions and experiential marketing, including Cannes Lion Titanium and Grand Prix, a Grand Clio, and has been recognized as Advertising Women of New York Changing the Game Award honoree, 10 Women to Watch at Advertising Week Europe 2014, and much more. I had the pleasure of working with Kathleen when I was EVP of Advertising and Chief Strategy Officer at Microsoft, and one of my proudest moments was our collaboration on the empowering ad, Microsoft's first Super Bowl ad in 2014, and the surrounding narrative experience. Kathleen, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Mark. I'm going to have you rewrite my bio. That was awesome.
It's been a long time, and you've done so much since I've been out there. So first, any predictions for Sunday's game?
Well, you know, I lived in New England for 18 years, and the kids are kind of rooting for Tom Brady no matter where he goes. So I think we'll root for him, but my prediction would be Kansas City.
Ooh, all right. Kathleen, before we get into the conversation, I'd like to play Empowering. Let's take a look at that ad we made so many years ago.
What is technology? What can it do?
When I lost my eyesight, I thought that my painting days were over.
How far can we go?
By using your hands, you can actually control your x-ray.
Technology has the power to unite us.
Hang on, honey. Hang on.
There he is.
You see him?
I can see him.
It inspires us. Technology has taken us places we've only dreamed.
Now I can do whatever I want.
It gives hope to the hopeless. And it has given voice to the voiceless.
The spot was named 2014 Kellogg Business School #1 advertisement. It was #1 in the Wall Street Journal poll. It was cited as one of the best by Time Magazine. And as you know, Kathleen, it got lots of accolades from audiences we didn't even expect. Thinking back all those years, Kathleen, do you remember when we made the decision to do it, how it came about, what's some of the backstory?
Wow, Mark, we live this together, so there's a ton of backstory. And, I think the context is important to remember where Microsoft was then. And I think when both of us were there, Microsoft was kind of coming out of a challenging time, right? The Vista launch was kind of a failure by marketing standards, at least. And, the company was a little scared. And, what you and I figured out is we got to lift our heads up and we got to get out of the trenches. And, fear is not a strategy, basically. So what is it that we stand for? What do we believe in? What are the values of the company that we could bring to life? And then what would be the forum to do that? And I think, we were all a little crazy at the time. We weren't intimidated by the thought. I guess we were and we weren't, but we knew we had to do something big, right? You have to drop a really big changing the game kind of shift to make people think differently about a company. So we dug into the company and said, what is it we're about versus the way we're being positioned by Apple at the time, which was, the fat white guy who's past his due date, right? And we said, well, they're all about the heroes or the celebrities or the cool kids. We're all about real people doing amazing things. How do we bring that to life? And we were working with an agency at the time, as you remember, a nascent agency. And, they basically went out and sought stories online. So really user generated at the time to find ways to illustrate Microsoft's impact on the world. And that was really, I think, the starting point for us.
Now, Kathleen, we had 3 ideas, if you remember.
I do.
Remember, I sat down with the group and one day and said, well, we're spending all this money on sponsoring the NFL. Shouldn't we go to the Super Bowl? And to which we said, well, we've never quite been to the Super Bowl before. And I certainly had never been to the Super Bowl before from that side of the advertising, haven't been on the client side for so long. And so we sat down and said, well, look, if we do 3 ideas, maybe one of them's going to get through.
Right.
I remember quite distinctively one of those ideas.
Me too.
had a little mouse that was like, I don't even remember, it was chewing on stuff and spitting it out. And I remember we all thought it was great at the time till we showed it to Bill Gates and he said, oh God, that's the worst thing I've ever seen. So that idea was thrown out.
That's
Remember
what
the second idea?
But I think up to the last minute, we were still thinking, because comedy was an option in the mix that we had. That's the one I remember too. And it was basically a mouse who had this giant cracker who was trying to get it up to where he lived. And he kept trying and he kept trying. And somehow, I don't know, we were making a story out of it. We all thought it was hysterical, but in the end, probably not the right thing. Because comedy plays in the Super Bowl, right? You pretty much have 2 big options. One is to go funny and the other is to go emotional and connect. And, Microsoft's history wasn't emotional. And, Ballmer probably would have preferred humor and shtick at the time. So, we weren't known as a grab your heart kind of company, but that's the direction we went.
So we had one other idea that was kind of more rough and tumble, built around Breaking Bad characters.
I kind of remember now.
So we went with the more emotional story, telling the story of technology and how it affected people's lives. And I was in the Super Bowl stadium at the time, and it was a little frightening because there was almost no reaction in the stadium itself. But as soon as the ad played, Kathleen, what kind of reaction did we get?
Well, it just blew up. I think we were trepidatious because generally Microsoft would get slammed a lot for its marketing, even if it wasn't appropriate. We were kind of a punching bag for the press. So we didn't know which way it would go. And then our own internal constituents kind of scared the crap out of us because if you remember, we shared it with some of our people who are focused on inclusion and disability, and they thought that we might draw ire for it, like that we are, barred interest and or not appropriately serving these audiences, like the ALS community that Steve Gleason was part of. But it turned out in the end, I think we had a great social strategy where we engaged a lot of organizations and we made sure that they felt heard and valued. And it basically it blew up. It blew up socially. It blew up in the press. And we kind of knew we had a winner pretty soon. We kind of knew. You never know till the next day. But, the variations of people who responded from, pop artists to political figures to, the range was crazy.
Yeah, I was most touched by hundreds of emails from employees who said, this is why we come to work each day, and that we really connected. And then Satya came in as CEO, and it was such a powerful moment internally that in his first kind of speech as CEO to the troops, he referenced our ad and how it really captured the moment. And so in a lot of ways, it was an unexpected success. And so that leads to the question of, how does someone doing a Super Bowl ad today really measure success? What do people really get out of a Super Bowl ad? Would you recommend to other companies?
I'll come back to that if you don't mind. I want to touch the employee part because I do think it's so important. We didn't tell anybody we were doing this. It was a very closed circle, which I think is what makes for great creative and great
So they
output.
couldn't stop us, Kathleen.
They couldn't stop us, right? And we all knew our badges were on the line anyway. But we're like, but the employee response, you're right, to get mail after mail that said, thank you, this is the company I've always known I've worked for, was just, and tears. People, like the memes that they send even in mail were just so amazing. And I think that's when you know you really got something right. It's a turning point for the company when the employees themselves so readily embrace it. And then you're right, Satya, people always like kind of mix the timeline. Satya came in after that Super Bowl spot, but the most wonderful thing he did was A, make culture his focus, and B, embrace the empowering us all position, which, by the way, were words that came out of your mouth. So remember, it was empowering something else, and you're like, why not empowering us all? And that's how we work. So yeah, so I think that sort of North Star for the company, employees, and that Satya like reinforces to this day, I think really changed things at Microsoft materially. So A, I would say that's one benchmark of success. Does the company embrace it, and does it have material change and impact for the company? The other things that we look at, of course, are, do we move the needle on brand attributes that are super important and that we can prove tied to business outcome? Like, is it a brand I love? Is it for people like me? Does it demonstrate innovation? We had metrics in place that we measured all of the shift in that. And then, of course, we focus very heavily on purchase intent or likelihood to buy any of our goods and services. And that went literally through the roof, like double and triple digit change. So it didn't, the point wasn't just sort of the social embracing and the goodwill and it wasn't this great that it was recognized. It was really that materially, and we had CEOs write letters that said, oh my gosh, I want to do business with Microsoft. This is a company I believe in. That's what you want. You want to have business impact through, true kind of emotional connection.
Well, most importantly, Kathleen, Steve, CEO, said, you guys were right after all.
See, you never told me that. You never told me that. I kind of felt it, but you didn't say it.
So what are your recommendations for others out there that are planning a Super Bowl ad? And talk a little bit about not just the viewership on the Super Bowl, but how you play the social media aspect. And is that as important as the televised nature of the ad itself today?
Well, I'll go to that first. I think we learned over time how to kind of perfect the social media end of the thing, because as you know, everybody releases their Super Bowl spots early now, like, weeks in advance. And A, we're very rarely ready because I wait a long time to feel the social context. And B, we kind of let that wave happen. So a couple weeks out, most people tend to release online. I kind of wait for that tsunami to happen and come in just on the tail end when the press is still interested, probably the Wednesday or Thursday before, so we get some notice. And then we make sure that we get kind of the friendlies going first. So we release to, our employees, release to our partners. And what happens is that social flywheel kind of gets going in a very positive way. Your organic starts to get, kind of elevated. And then when the thing hits, you're visible, you're easy to find, and generally there's a lot of positive commentary out there. So that's been our strategy. And our first drop from a PR perspective, we tend to pick a broadcast partner. We tend to pick somebody who's going to make a big enough splash for us, again, to get all those, it's all a flywheel in social, especially since everything these days has to be pretty much paid to get it going. That's been our model, our strategy.
And has the media mix changed in the last few years?
Yeah, significantly. We are probably 50-50 digital to OTT television. A lot of the digital, though, tends to be video. So we're still, it's just a different way to deliver video. I just, again, think the captiveness and engagement of the audience in the old broadcast arena, I shouldn't call it the old broadcast arena, the old broadcast arena, was really valuable. And I don't know, as we see streaming, sure, there's some paid streaming and, basically paid advertiser streaming. And there's a lot that isn't, it's advertiser free. And it's getting harder and harder to capture that tonnage and immediacy that we used to have in marketing. It takes time.
So does that mean that the days of the big Super Bowl ad with the unlimited budgets, helicopter shoots, and incredible ideas is going to pass, or you think that the
I don't
Super
think
Bowl
it's
is going
going
to
to
stay?
pass. I think it's the last. It's the last grandstanding. I think it's still the place. It is the Super Bowl of advertising as well as football. I think it's going to stay that way. I think it's the last great showcase, and I think you're still. I think this game is going to do great numbers. I think the Bucks versus the Chiefs is a good matchup. So I think it's still going to be there.
Well, so finally, Kathleen, you're sitting there, and you're a company considering going to the Super Bowl. Let's go through the 4 or 5 things that they have to really think about before they spend what we now know is $10 to $12 million, all in before they make that go no go decision.
All right. So the first thing is, do you have news or a message that you think is strong and important enough to warrant that venue? So that's number one. And that's in that product truth, kind of brand truth. Do you have the money? I mean, are you going to put what needs to go around this thing to make it successful in terms of effort in social and search and extended videos and all the kind of digital that surrounds it? It's not just doing a 30-second or a 60-second spot. So do you have the kind of financial commitment and wherewithal to do all the extra parts and pieces? And do you have a pretty good read on why you're in the Super Bowl? Like why the Super Bowl? Is it the right audience venue? Will you stand up against the big guys that are there? Ford and Budweiser and all these companies are going to have big messages. Can you play in that arena? And then lastly, does it feel right from a tone and a manner of delivery perspective? I think that's probably the most important thing right now. I mean, you saw what happened to Pepsi back in the day, right? You got to look at this from a lot of angles. And I think having diversity on your team helps, because people can tell you, hey, you're gonna hit a bad nerve there or a good nerve here. It helps. So I think that would kind of be my checklist to go through. And also then we had a war room in place, Mark, as you remember. Be prepared, because you need to socially connect very quickly if there tends to be, if a negativity starts to happen or feed a positive. You've got to stay super engaged as it's happening and throughout to really make the most of it.
Well, I think if you can meet all the conditions of truth and authenticity that Kathleen has laid out, I would say, particularly because we have so many ad companies at NBC, go for it.
I agree. There's no more rewarding thing than to have a Super Bowl spot be successful. I mean, it's important.
Let me thank you so much for joining us. This was a great conversation. I think the audience will come away with a lot of practical takeaways. It's great to reconnect with you. I had just a tremendous experience working with you, and it was tremendous to reconnect over these experiences. We could start to go through some of the other ads, but I think instead we will be passing the mic over to my colleague Ryan Linder for our next conversation with Ronali Zarat-Bayani, CMO of the LA Rams. Thank you again so much.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
Wow, that was fantastic. Amazing to see how innovative Mark and Kathleen were with their approach to connecting with Super Bowl viewers. Some great takeaways out there for any marketers investing in the big game. I'm so excited for our next conversation. A few days ago, I had the chance to sit down with my dear friend, Ronali. Without any further ado, let's roll the tape. All right. In advance of the big game, I'm very excited to talk with a great marketer, an innovative thinker, and most importantly, a very dear friend, Ronali Zarat-Bayani, Chief Marketing Officer of the Los Angeles Rams. Ronali is a pioneer in her field with a passion for building iconic brands through agile modern marketing. She's a change agent who knows how to leverage technology, talent, and innovation to drive meaningful organizational change. Throughout her extensive career, Ronali has held leadership positions at Hershey, Visa, Taco Bell, and much more. As Chief Marketing Officer at the Los Angeles Rams, she seamlessly combines analytical skills, motivational nurturing, and digital expertise to drive the team to new levels. During her tenure, the Rams have undergone an entire transformation, from a new stadium to a new brand and much more. Ronali has reimagined this iconic team with unparalleled success. Ronali, I could not be more thrilled for you to join us today. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. And, it's great to be back during these Super Bowl times, albeit in an unprecedented way. The last time we were together, we were having a ton of fun and enjoying that moment. And here's another way to, enjoy the moment, so to speak.
We've worked with you. We've had the privilege, myself and our multiple teams across MDC and Stagwell. Several brands at Hershey was where we started for many, many years. And then you brought us along with you to Los Angeles and in the next frontier of your career with the Los Angeles Rams. Well, hey, and now here you are on the heels of your 4th season with the Los Angeles Rams. First season, you start building a stadium in a new brand foundation. Second season, you go to the big show. You go to Atlanta to the Super Bowl. Third season, road to leadership and further development on this groundbreaking stadium. Fourth season, this past, coming to a head at the Super Bowl in a couple of days. You fight through COVID, you launch a new brand, and you open a state-of-the-art stadium. Incredibly high achievement.
A crazy ride.
It
has been such a blessing to be part of all of that. I look back and I always think about how marketers spend an entire career, especially in sports, to reach these pinnacle moments in sports. And I feel so blessed and honored to work with such an amazing team, both on and off the field, to be able to be part of that journey and to contribute to the success and the vision of our owner, Stan Kroenke, who has really brought this all to life in such a spectacular way. And I can't wait for fans to be able to experience what we have in store for them and what's sitting behind me on this virtual interview.
I can't wait to go to that stadium. I can't wait to see a game on that field. Remarkable. Absolutely. We're talking a lot about teams. Okay. So there's the Rams NFL team, and all it takes to make that team all it can be, and the team and the army of people on the field. But then there's the team and army that drives it forward for the organization off the field, and how each supports each other in an ecosystem. I'd love for you to just talk about that a little bit and unpack the magic and the chemistry and the complexity of marketing an NFL team and building an NFL brand.
There's so many people involved, right? I can't take any personal credit because it's all part of a team. And when you're part of a team, every piece plays a critical role. And when we talk about our team, we talk about what's on the field, right? Our amazing players and coaches, but also what's off the field, the staff, the fans all over, our partners, our sponsors, the NFL, you name it, our agency partners, right? Everybody plays a role in bringing that energy, that passion, that drive that fuels our team on the field, right? And that what they do on the field further fuels us. And so there's like this synergistic relationship where we're all in this together, all trying to bring it home for LA, for our fans, and for all the great things that this organization stands for.
It's true. It was truly remarkable what I was able to witness when we were in Atlanta, and sitting with you in the Rams house, downtown Atlanta on Super Saturday. But the Rams set up the Rams house in Atlanta, and watching you in particular, Ronali, and your team make that one of the best brand engagement experiences I've ever had was remarkable. So talk to me a little bit about going to the Super Bowl as a marketer, right?
Yeah, it's crazy because if you think about it, the NFL is set up where every weekend matters, right? You got one game, you're in the playoffs, and you're in or you're out. Come Sunday, end of day Sunday, you're in or you're out. And so you don't even get to prepare for the Super Bowl until a few weeks before. So if you think about any other industry or any other launch per se or experience, you have maybe a year to prepare and set it all up. You've got a few weeks. And each week you're doing a little bit more And you're also worried because you're like, do we have to stop? Is this the end? Or are we going? Right? And if we're going, you get more excited. But then also you're like, oh my God, there's so much to do. Right? Because you want to create an experience for your fans, for your partners, for the entire team that matches that experience that our players and our coaches are putting on the field. And to your point, I remember that Saturday when we were together and we were experiencing the Rams house come to life, our community fans gathered in Atlanta together, screaming, cheering, bringing all their energy to life. That was my favorite moment of Super Bowl.
Yeah.
The game is special, don't get me wrong, and being able to get there, and man, the hard work that our coaches and players did to bring us there. But that moment was magical because that's when we all come together and you feel the energy of the good, the bad, the ugly all come together to say, hey, we're in this and we're celebrating. And that's what matters.
Similarities and differences. This is something I'd like to unpack. Similarities and differences between CPG, one might say, your foundational, bread and butter, where you cut your teeth, and then NFL franchise.
At the end of the day, it's all about connecting your brand with the end customer, be it a fan, be it a consumer, whatever the case may be. That's what you're trying to create. You're trying to create an authentic, a meaningful connection that inspires behavior, right? And so whether you're in one industry or another, that carries through. The difference is maybe some of the levers that you have from which to do it. In sports, what's really great is it's probably the most intense connection you're going to get from the end consumer, which is our fan, and the product or the brand, right? And so with that level of intensity comes a great deal of responsibility because you're nurturing, you're cultivating, and when the highs are high, they are off the chart. And when the lows are low, man, you got to pick them all up, right? And say, how do we do this together? And it's exciting because you have so many different levers. The biggest one that is unique in sports versus CPG or financial services or some of the other industries I've been in is the ability to create these experiences, right? We are an experience industry.
Yep.
And in order to really bring out that emotion, we have the good fortune of putting to life or bringing to life an experience that others get to play a part in. So we don't get to shape it ourselves. We don't have full control of that. We need our fans, our end consumers, to be part of cultivating and co-creating that.
Well, and exactly. And the fans are your culture, right? And you are the culture of your fans. And people that experience a great game day. You talk about Super Bowl weekend, anything related to those type of experiences, but a tailgate, a game, a touch point, a signing event, whatever it might be, those are memories that are locked into fans that can never be dismissed or forgotten, and you're absolutely right. Let me ask you this. When the Rams are not playing in the Super Bowl and you came close, against the Packers was a tough game, right?
It was.
Heartbreaking. For me and you and other Rams fans, what do you do to promote the Rams brand? How do you keep that flame alive? How do you show up?
The great thing about football and sports in general is every year's a new year. And every year you start on an equal playing field with everyone else. And so every year you go through the highs and lows and you start with hope all over again. And so it's about bringing everyone together to say thank you for being a part of this journey, because wherever you net out, it is a journey and everyone puts their heart and soul on and off the field. And then it's a reset and says, okay, we're starting anew. We can do this.
Yep.
Let's rally.
I think those are good lessons for absolutely every aspect of business. I personally wish the corporate world would take a pause and give you a complete reset in the new season, Q1. But it's a great way to approach, the next season, the next year. But you're absolutely right. That is definitely a singularly special attribute for the NFL and any sports franchise. What have you seen evolving in the comm side of Super Bowl during your tenure?
Wow. So much. As you think about sports, and especially this past year, the fandom of sports on all leagues has been on the decline with COVID because there's so many other things that people are dealing with on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think to the future of the sports and the health of sports, it's in making sure that we continue to cultivate youth and grow their fandom, especially as the youth of today has grown up with so many options for entertainment, right? If you think about the world at your fingertips via a screen, you can do anything, anywhere, experience anything, anywhere. And so, how do you keep them engaged and interested and excited about sports? And so, if you think about that and what's happening on the whole, and then apply that forward when you think about comms, it's about ensuring that you're leveraging every touch point, and it's no longer about generations past where you're pulling them to you, but you're going to them and you're showing up in ways that match where they are. And so as new channels emerge, particularly in the social space, it's about how do you show up in a way that's relevant there so that you continue to be a force in their lives as they continue to grow up. And, like anything, we all have to evolve.
Yeah.
And you have to do it in a way where humanity is evolving and the youth are leading the charge in how behaviors are changing.
What of the COVID era trends, right, as it relates to the NFL and the NFL experience through the lens of the LA Rams, do you think are going to be here to stay?
Humanity matters. Society matters. People matter.
That's right.
Regardless of your background, your gender, your generation, right? How do you think about people first?
Yeah.
And the power and the beauty of sport is the ability to unite so many from so many backgrounds. And in today's context, that's even more important. And I think that's here to stay and should be here to stay. Risks,
failures, related to any aspect of any, experiments that you took with marketing, innovation, you name it. I would just love to know your perspective on taking the risk, taking the shots that don't have a desire, that don't have a guarantee to hit the mark. Test and learn. Would love your perspective on it.
Yes, yes, and yes. So important, right? Let's just start there. For you to really achieve step change growth for an organization, you got to take risks. Like that's just part of it, because playing it safe will only get you incremental gains, if that, right? And if you think about who wins on the field, let's use football here. Like there's some risk taking that actually happens. There's some tried and true that you lean in from a foundation standpoint. And in any industry, that's important. You've got to hold on to that tried and true, but you can't be afraid to take risks. And when you're going to take risks, do it fast, right? Fail fast and learn, and then don't do it again, and figure out how you keep moving forward. Because without that, know that everybody is going to move forward ahead of you, and so there's so many ways we innovate on and off the field, but I think what's more important is that mindset that you can't be afraid to innovate, right? And you can't be afraid to fail, because the best lessons that I've had in my careers has come from taking those risks, putting my head down after the failure, picking myself back up, and let's go, right? Because again, then for the next time, all right, this is something that didn't work, but how do I think about it differently? And so that's just so important in marketing. It's so important in sport. It's just so important in life. And yes, let's go.
I could not agree more. Get knocked down, get back up. Humanity first, fail fast, no fear, keep going, Ronali, CMO of the LA Rams, I can't thank you enough for joining us. I wish you all the best of luck as you push into your next season.
Thank you, Ryan.
Love that woman. Big job. She's doing it well. Now, I'm excited to introduce our live panel, Breaking the Mold, a conversation with creators who have brought bright, bold Super Bowl campaigns to life. In addition to the ads we'll be running this year at the big game across MDC and Stagwell, we've been partners to iconic brands who have ambitious stories to tell on everyone's favorite Sunday of the year. Our all-star lineup of the creators joining me today are Jason DeLand, founding partner of Anomaly, personally led the creation of over a dozen Super Bowl films, 3 of which were the most watched Super Bowl ads of all time, one of which was the most loved Super Bowl ad, according to USA Today, of all time, Budweiser Puppy Love. Next up, we've got Zach Hilder, Group Creative Director, 72 and Sunny. Zach wrote and produced last year's NFL Super Bowl commercial, The Next 100, which won 4 Emmys. This year, Zach and the NFL are bringing back the legendary coach Vince Lombardi for the big game. Got a peek last night? Epic is the only word that I can use to describe it. Next up, Linda Knight, Chief Creative Officer, Observatory. Based in LA, Linda is a pioneer of non-interruptive content, focusing on integrating brand stories with cultural moments to break through in today's crowded media environment. At Observatory, she has worked on clients such as Chipotle, Nike, Netflix, and Bonobos. Linda was the creative mastermind behind the first ever Kia Joyride ad. Which brings me to my friend Seema Miller, co-founder and president at Wolfgang. Based in LA, Seema works at the intersection of strategy, culture, creativity, working for some of the most iconic brands of our time, including Adidas, Brawny, Gillette, and more. Seema has worked on numerous Super Bowl spots as well, including the iconic 2017 Kia Hero's Journey. Last but not least, my man Jason Pierce, creative director at CPB, Crispin Porter Boguski. CPB has created a ton of powerful Super Bowl work over recent years. PayPal, MetLife, Turkish Airlines, Hulu, Coke Zero, the list goes on. Jason is the man behind innovative campaigns like the Chevy Game Day Super Bowl ad, which won him a Gold Lion and fundamentally changed the way brands leverage engagement, metrics, and content in real time during the biggest marketing event of the year. Welcome, family. Good to be here.
Hi.
Hey.
Hey, good to have everybody. Any of you can hire me to be your PR person anytime.
Nice. Nice work.
Look, let's kick off this conversation. I think with a relevant question. Why should a brand decide to run a Super Bowl ad? And when does it make sense? And when is the risk investment not worth it? Jason, why don't you take this one?
Well, I think, I have the privilege of having done a lot of these, and the reasons why people do Super Bowl ads have changed over the years. So doing them before the advent of social and digital, media being the dominant, force that it is today. Back then, you did it because you wanted to show off your brand. You wanted to entertain people. You wanted to, grow a business, whatever it might be, but it was really reserved for the largest brands in the world. And I think as social and digital media have become more prevalent in our lives, the opportunity to extend the shoulders of the Super Bowl, to make it more of a marketing moment throughout the calendar of the year, get a lot more out of it, and as well how it's influenced what the content is on the Super Bowl and why marketers may do it, has all changed. And so, I think there are many reasons why marketers leverage that medium. The thing that I always come back to is the real reason to do Super Bowl is because you have a very captive audience. And there is just not any longer, particularly with the proliferation of many different media outlets, the ability to do that. And I think marketers, all of them, need to be very aware that that is the real reason to do it, and to show up with something that can resonate and matter to people, as opposed to just do an ad. And if they do that, then it's pretty hard to mess up. But if they run it through the research mill and they try and get all safe and mitigate every single risk, then chances are they're going to show up with a dud on Sunday.
I mean, this is one of the last places where people aren't actively trying to avoid ads. You know, they're excited to see them, they're engaged, they watch them, they rate them. You know, last year, 1 in 2 people said they'd tune in for the commercials, even if the game got cancelled. I mean, this is one place where people love what we do, which is nice.
Absolutely. You know, brings me to my next question. Is Super Bowl really one of the last remaining appointment television opportunities? And how relevant is that in today's digitally heavy in virtual world? Seema, why don't you take that one?
Actually, all live sports, and obviously Super Bowl is right on top of it. If we look at the top rated shows for live watching, it is sports, because that's the last thing where you don't want the spoiler. You don't want to turn to social media and have somebody tell you who won. So you do want to actually watch on time and be there for it. And then down the list, after you get through the first big sort of set of games, you get to something like the Oscars. So yeah, it is actually, which is why it's worth the investment, which is why it sort of garners the kind of attention from marketers and advertisers that it does.
You know, we heard from Mark and Kathleen about how Microsoft's first foray into the Super Bowl advertising surprised even them with the level of internal employee engagement that it delivered, in part because everyone in their families were paying attention. How do you make the most of that? Jason, over to you, or Jason Pierce, over to you.
Well, you know, you're talking about a sport that involves dances, wings, and beer. You know, the whole thing is one big amazing experience. And you know, the fun in that is that as for a brand and as marketers, we can also come in and create an experience. And you know, to me, that doesn't mean that it's the death of television or the death of a traditional spot, but it's more about creating, you know, you're going to get a ton of eyeballs on that. How do you create an experience while you have everyone's attention to further the way that people interact with the brand?
Let's move to a question on measurement investment. You know, how do you measure the success of a Super Bowl investment? What are some of the non-traditional measures that a brand should consider? Seema, I'm going to sling this one right back over to you.
You know, we know the short-term sort of effect, right? Because it really helps when you have 110 million people watching. Awareness is a short-term gain that is well recorded. But, you know, the couple things that I don't think have been quite proven that would be really interesting to sort of really dig into is what is the halo effect of a really good investment on the rest of your advertising throughout the year? Is it that if you do a really good job at the Super Bowl and you really stand out with not one of the safe ads like Jason talked about, then does your brand actually stand to benefit from potentially greater breakthrough for the advertising that comes in, you know, Q3 of the year? You know, what is the halo effect of it? Because the short term, we all know it really helps, but even the long term, there are some theories that it actually could have a really good sort of a halo effect on the brand.
Interesting. Jason, Pierce again, you know, your experience with Chevy was really groundbreaking in how it engaged viewers using a second screen. Any lessons there?
Yeah, you know, going back to your last question is, you know, unique ways to measure success. I think the first metric should be an internal one. What's the goal that as a team you all have? And I'm including the client in that. And that is the thing that levels the playing field, no pun intended, because from that point on, you all march toward that goal. and that is the metric. And in our case, with the Chevy Game Time app, we had an ambitious goal that was kind of thrown at us by the client, which was to get 1 billion eyeballs. And when you hear that, you think that's absolutely nuts. But then you start trying to think of all of the cheat codes. And the way we approached it was actually through an insight, which was more people are engaged on the second screen during the game at more so than the main screen. So we just gamed that theory a little bit, and from that point on, it was like, okay, how do you get 1 billion eyeballs? Well, we're going to create an app. Well, and then we're going to do this. We know that we're running spots, so we're going to force users to interact with the spots via a second screen, capitalizing on a behavior that's already there. So we didn't have to really create anything new in terms of how people were behaving during the game. We just had to provide a place for them to play and keep them interacting with the brand.
I think that's really interesting too. Just even thinking about, traditionally you think the Super Bowl spot is your end all be all. It's the crown on the campaign. But even to Seema's point, and thinking about it as a launch of an experience that could go on one day after, or kick off marketing for the rest of the year, or even jumpstart a brand. So.
That's right. Leveraging the entire ecosystem around the game, crucial. What about real-time content creation in this environment? You know, the pressure is higher than ever to respond quickly and smartly to what's happening on screen. How can brands make sure they deliver? Jump ball.
You know, I'll take this one because we had a Super Bowl ad in Super Bowl 50 where the client decided to run 15 seconds of really hard product sell. And they suggested we do something on social. So a few days before Super Bowl, we got the brand spokesperson and filmed him doing 200 scripts and responding to every conceivable thing that we thought might happen during Super Bowl. We'd already seen some ads, so we did films responding to those. The day of Super Bowl, we holed up in the war room, a whole team, and just responded in real time on Twitter. We posted at least 50 of those films, and it was much more engaging than the Super Bowl spot in the end. People really loved it.
Yeah, we had a similar approach. I think the secret to reacting in real time is first understanding the brand's voice. Like, that's the strongest foundation. Understanding culture and being able to anticipate some things that you suspect might happen, and then just having the process in place of, you know, the relationship with the team, the relationship with the client to be able to react quickly, because there are no approvals really during this whole thing. It's if you have the first two, then you can just roll, and the rest of the stress is on the writer and the art director to keep up with the madness of creating content in real time, which is madness.
You know, Deland, Anomaly is no stranger to real-time content creation around. I don't care if it's the Super Bowl, the World Cup. You guys have been there, done that many a times. I would love to get your POV on this question.
Yeah, I actually don't think it's a choice. I think you do it. You have to do it. It's not like I would challenge anyone to go, that's not a good idea, particularly in today's age. Right. But Jason's 100% right. It's really hard. It's a challenge to do. You know, I look at the Super Bowl in that regard as a moment to express your brand and your voice in a multitude of different ways, in a multitude of different channels. I think the mistake is I'm going to focus it on this one thing, as opposed to focus it on all of the potential activity and all the potential attention that you're getting for that investment.
That's right. You know, it's only appropriate that we take a turn. I think it was 100% in our lane to just talk about the art and the craft and the sacred science of creating great Super Bowl work. But I think we need to take a look at where we are here and now. We've been through a hell of a year. You know, the NBA pulled it off. The NFL pulled it off. I think the best out of all the leagues to keep the season moving. We're approaching the big pinnacle of the season. So let's just take a look at here we are now, 2021. How do brands strike the right tone and show up culturally relevant now? Again, I'm going to let you jump on.
I'll start because I think the only way to do it is to know exactly who you are and be unafraid of telling the world about it.
Yeah.
And that's hard for a lot of brands to do.
I was surprised and delighted to see humor back in a lot of the ads that have come back. I'm like, oh, it's okay to laugh again. Like, and I know it's been a hard year, but if you can't laugh when you're really sad, then what's the point of it? I don't know. I think I hope that we can kind of get back to that in advertising.
Yeah, I think a lot of brands are trying to be responsible, but it's actually responsible to lighten things and let us have a laugh. Like we all desperately need it. We really do. So yeah, it's great.
You know, Linda.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Linda, I want to just jump in with you just a second deeper on this because you've worked with a variety of brands that have taken big stands on issues driving culture lately. Bonobos to Chipotle to USA Facts. Tell us about, tell us how you think about telling stories in a way that unites instead of divides.
Mm-hmm. Well, USA Facts, for instance, they are a website that provides Americans with nonpartisan facts to help make smart decisions, including when they vote. So we made a campaign that ran during the presidential debates. When you know the facts, you can change the story. And we talked about using, provocative and extreme examples of the issues to really get people talking and fired up and really notice it. But we suspected that the debates would be a hot mess inside a dumpster fire. So we decided to do the opposite and use the issues that everyone really cared about and that were relatable no matter what side you were on. And in the end, it was really universal. It was empowering and actually stood out in the noise. Having said that, though, there are some brands that are not for everyone, and they're okay with that. Nike, Ben & Jerry's, Patagonia, they've got really strong beliefs and they stand by them and they're authentic and people love them for it. They're beloved, just not all people.
That's right. Anybody else want to jump on that one? Zach, I promised I'd play nice and I'm going to do that. I promise. But, through the lens of striking the right tone, the National Football League, you've done some great work with them for the last couple of years. How do you get to finding your right zone and kind of nirvana with what you end up putting out into the world? Sure.
I think, for us, this Super Bowl film almost started at the beginning of the season when we launched the line, It Takes All of Us. And really, we wanted to put a finale on that really tries to, bring this country back in some type of unifying matter. And we started looking at, most throughout our history of the NFL, we started doing a lot of research. We found Coach Lombardi and really started studying his words. And he was a unifier. But he even said, you can't play for me if you have any kind of prejudice. And, I think that those, words, we found that his words were really timeless. So we wanted to bring him back for the Super Bowl in a really special way. We were talking about it as like a voice from the past, but a message for today. We hope it really resonates with America.
Yeah. One word, like I said earlier, epic. What about this odd year will translate to 2022?
Hopefully nothing.
Yeah, I know. No, Pierce. God, Pierce, what's on your mind?
I go back to what I think Zach was saying. Just being able to laugh again is probably number one. But also, I'm a firm believer in that any sort of form of adversity, there is an equal opportunity or greater opportunity for something positive. And I think that we've all been through so much that this is more than anything an opportunity to learn from it. And as a creative, I think that has made me more creative in a way, because I think on a personal level, I've experienced challenges that force you to solve problems in creative ways that you had never thought of before. Yeah. Whether it's production, how fast you're turning around scripts, whatever it is, or just thing outlets to keep you even motivated as a creative person. So I think 2022, which is hilarious that we're even talking about because we're like toe deep in 21, I think it's just going to be an explosion of like just amazing ideas and just many people pushing the craft forward.
I agree. So one of the things I want to wrap with one last thing for you guys from me, and then we've got some questions that are lighting up over here that look really good. I want to get addressed. Giving everybody something to kind of walk away with and learn, especially if you're a marketer tuned in right here and now. When I spoke with Ronali earlier from the Rams, she spoke about some of the trends from last year that are here to stay. What are some of the enduring lessons any marketer can take away from this event in this year? Jason Deland, why don't you kick us off?
Compete. I think that it is, I think most marketing today is average to below average. It doesn't have to be. One of the great things about Sunday is we all get to see what this industry is capable of doing. And I look at the Super Bowl as that standard, and I hope that brands go out there and compete. Zach, I'm really excited to see what the NFL has to do, because the way you've described it, it's great. That's the type of, I was going to swear, that's the type of stuff we need as an industry. And I'm really tired of average communications out there when the whole entire country is watching. Like, you got to be kidding me. Raise the game. And that's what I hope happens, is Jason's point, like, as people really hone in on their craft and elevate it, that's what we need on the Super Bowl.
And Super Bowl is one day. You have 364 other days where you need to actually reach people and attract and engage rather than interrupt, because they really do not want to be interrupted anymore.
Well, and oftentimes it's really easy to sort of default to getting a big celebrity, because that's an easy way to get a good vote and get breakthrough. Hopefully, we'll still go back to the idea. We'll still go back to what is really powerful about the idea that will break through, even if it doesn't have a celebrity.
I'd say creativity, and I know that's what we're here to talk about, but it doesn't just end on the page. Creativity should go beyond that. How it shows up, where it shows up, everything you do should be to do something completely original. And I think that's the measure for any great marketing.
Jason Pierce, how about you?
Well, first, I think to kind of poke at Jason a little bit, in 2022, we'll be able to swear again freely, which would be awesome. I think to not be repetitive, I think it is really, for me, just being freer. But now, during this time, we've kind of garnered so many weapons that it's just a matter of waiting for the right time to use them all creatively. And I think as we get through this year, it does feel like we're freeing that up a bit. But yeah, I think I'm super excited to see how at the other end of this, we all are as creators and marketers and brand ambassadors and all of that stuff. I think it's going to be amazing.
I'd second that. Awesome discussion. Let's grab a couple of questions before we wrap up, guys. So, panelist question: what was most challenging for you as you tried to concept a big idea worthy of Super Bowl during COVID and getting it done? Fair game. Why don't you? Yeah, go ahead, Zach. Hit it.
Yeah, I mean, just shooting in COVID times remotely. Production and doing something great is hard enough when we're all there in on set together, but shooting remotely is brought on other challenges. Editing remotely, I find way hard. It's just, doing reviews with your clients everything just takes longer, and I don't know. It's crazy. I hope it doesn't keep going this way. I want to go back to shoots. I miss snacks.
We all miss craft services.
Yes.
Right? Jason, Deland, what would you say to that question?
I think, like, look, creativity thrives when you put constraints in front of people. You make things difficult. You have to do things differently. You have to take risks. You have to try things that have never been tried before. So, you know, like, look, adapt. We figured it out. You know, I don't see it as a major problem. I see it as a positive hurdle.
You know, speaking of hurdles, another question just came in. You know, cite a couple of hurdles, anybody that you faced in production during COVID, whether it be for a Super Bowl spot. I know not everyone on here has a Super Bowl spot coming up this weekend. So just in general, what type of hurdles have you faced that you've been able to overcome during COVID, production wise?
When you've already scouted locations at a certain place and then all of their COVID laws have changed and you have to reroute production. How's that one?
Can't imagine. Yeah. Well, guys, hey, we are at time. There are a few more questions. Sorry we didn't get to all of them. And you know, if I could kind of sum up what I heard in closing us out, lessons for next year: compete, have something to say, raise the game, focus on the quality of the idea, the power of creativity, always be original, and be selective in using your marketing weaponry. Family, I can't thank you enough for joining us and putting your intellectual capital against a great conversation. Much love, much appreciated. Marketers, colleagues, friends, thanks for tuning in. The big game is a couple days away. Enjoy it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Congrats, Zach.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Good luck, everyone.